The voting trends of ethnically diverse communities are incredibly complex and sometimes hard to predict. But with less than a week to go until election day, polling can give useful insights into how voters from ethnically diverse communities are feeling about the main political parties. Firstly, let's look at how they plan to vote. And as you can see here, the data is noticeably different from the national picture. Labour has historically fared well with voters from ethnically diverse communities, and 53% of voters we polled said they would vote for the party. That's a greater lead than the polls we have with the general population. Now, the Tories, well, they're faring worse among voters from ethnic minority communities. You can see that they're at 14%, which is neck and neck with the Green Party. Now, if we drill into the detail, we can see that 32% of British Indians said they would vote Conservatives. That's 12 points higher than the general population. So there is a lot of variation between communities. Reform UK, well, they polled much worse with ethnic minority voters than the population at large. They're on 7%, but they're still 1 point above the Liberal Democrats. So what issues do ethnic minority voters care about? And is it all that different to society as a whole? Well, the cost of living is the highest priority for these voters. And if we compare that to polling done for all voters across the UK, well, here it's the NHS that comes out on top, with the cost of living second. The starkest difference is on housing, which ranks much higher for the group made up of ethnic minorities, and the conflict in Gaza and Israel, which 41% of British Pakistanis and Bangladeshis marked as a priority. Now, we've previously reported on how both parties have suffered from what polling experts have described as a Gaza effect. But for Labour, more than half of all ethnic minority voters we polled think Labour has dealt with the Israel and Gaza issue badly. That's more than the general population. And within the Pakistani and Bangladeshi community, it's a lot higher, at 78%, who don't think Labour has performed well, despite the party now calling for a ceasefire. But does this matter to Labour? Although the party's foreign policy stance has been damaging, it's important to note that overall support for Labour among ethnic minorities, including Pakistanis and Bangladeshis, is still higher than it is across the population as a whole. But the party isn't being complacent. Labour's campaign app has been directing activists to help defend 16 constituencies, most of which have majority diverse communities. And one seat on that list is surprising: Shabana Mahmood's constituency of Birmingham Ladywood. It should be one of Labour's safest seats in the UK, with a majority of over 28,000. But with a high number of voters who care passionately about the conflict in the Middle East, Labour now appear to be campaigning defensively here. Now, this might not translate into votes or seats, but what is clear is that Labour support in some areas with high numbers of ethnically diverse communities could be waning long term. And that could be a much bigger problem for the party if, as the polls suggest, they make it into government.